All right, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Tuesday here, April 11th, 2023. Welcome to Dungeons and Deliberations, our normal Tuesday night stream. Eventually this will turn into just chatting, ask the DM type of situation. Of course, I'm still available here for anyone that wants to chat live, that's joining us and ask questions about being a dungeon master or questions and situations that come up in their games and such. But of course, we've only been streaming for about a month and a half, maybe, so we'll slowly build up to that. But while we're waiting, what we're going to do is today, as I mentioned last week, we are going to review the new film Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. I did put a big spoilers in the title of the stream tonight, so I'm going to warn everyone if you're tuning in. We're going to be discussing the plot, talking about the kind of the timeline of the film, walking through that as we go through. But keep in mind that the movie has been out for the early releases and the fan releases and the Prime Day and all of that stuff. The movie's been out for over 2 weeks now. So if you've had enough time, surely if you're a D&D fan or a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons and play a lot and all of that, you should have seen it by now. Of course, we're going to put this, you'll be able to see the spoiler tag on video on demand below eventually, and then when we upload it to YouTube here in the next week or so, we'll have a big spoiler tag on there to talk about the film. First thing I wanted to say is that as a D&D film, it is basically, I could describe it as a fantasy action comedy. It is hilarious. In my opinion, it blows the other D&D movies out of the water. It obviously has no connection to the previous 3 Dungeons and Dragons films. The previous films were obviously met with critical failure, I guess is the best word to put that. This one's had great reviews. Last time I checked, it was certified fresh. It was getting great reviews on all of the different critic sites and such like that. I generally myself, not a one to check what the critics say, especially before I go see a movie. And people always talk about how it's this, and this, but then at the same time, it's always opinion. And obviously, I have a different opinion about D&D films than critics do. But luckily, this time we all agree, and it's a great film. So first of all, let's just go ahead and kind of just to talk about what the film has. I mean, like if I'm going to give it a rating, I'd definitely give it like an 8 or 9 out of 10, just because it's got a lot of great humor, a lot of great action, and for those of us that are D&D geeks, it has a lot of great Easter eggs in there, a lot of great things, especially with the newest edition of D&D, with 5th edition. It's got a lot of stuff in there as well. You'll see a little bit from 4th and 5th edition in there, mentions-wise. First, it does take place in the Forgotten Realms, is where the film does take place. It does take place in the Sword Coast, which, again, for 5th edition players, most should be very familiar with that. The one thing, it does begin in Icewind Dale, actually. And an interesting thing about it is that in the opening scene, you have a bunch of forces, a group of, I should say, guards guarding a wagon taken across the frozen tundra of Icewind Dale. And they're heading to Revel's End, which is for those of you that played Rime of the Frost Maiden, or even the new book, Keys from the Golden Vault, upcoming here in a week or so, a week and a half, when we go back to our live streams on April 23rd for our live play games, where we're going to be playing Prisoner 13. That takes place pretty much entirely in Revel's End, which is a massive prison ran by the Lord's Alliance. And oddly enough, it's also, if you played, like as I mentioned, Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden, it features in that as well. A lot of people would be interested to know, I didn't realize this, but Revel's End was actually created specifically for the movie. And while they were working on the film and the script and such like that, the people at Wizards of the Coast went ahead and put Revel's End into the game by placing it in the Rime of the Frost Maiden, which I didn't realize. But it contains criminals from all over Faerun. And then the opening scene, you see that they're transporting a massive bugbear into the prison. And then you meet this is where you meet two of our protagonists right out the bat, which is Holga and Edgin, which is played by Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez. They are imprisoned there, and this bugbear is put into their cell. A little bit of witty banter, and then you discover, obviously, that Michelle Rodriguez's character is a barbarian when she basically takes out the bugbear for harassing her. Very inappropriately, I might add, but it was awesome to see that scene where she just shows that she's a powerful female barbarian and takes the bugbear out very quickly. Then it switches to a scene where you find out that Edgin and Holga are preparing for basically what would be like a parole hearing, or perhaps maybe to clear them or say that they've served their time, whatever. And they're waiting for Chris Pine's character, Edgins, talking about, he goes through and he notices that this councilman, that's this chancellor that is supposed to be there, named Jonathan, is not there. And you do notice that there's a human representative, there's a halfling representative, and a dragonborn representative there. And they're talking about how Chancellor Jonathan is an Aarakocra, which is really cool. And Ed goes on to talk about it a little bit, to tell his backstory kind of in a way, that he was once a harper. He worked with the harpers and did all different types of things, basically described what harpers do in Dungeons & Dragons, which was really great. And the banter quickly comes back and forth about asking if Jonathan's going to come in. And they keep saying, quit stalling, go ahead and finish or whatever. And he talks about how eventually he was really not getting any monetary gain from being a harper, and then eventually he said the harpers always have the problem of being a harper is that your enemies always want to come back to get you. And him and his wife and their daughter lived in a quaint village on the Sword Coast. I'm not really sure what the name of it was, but they might have mentioned it in there, but I didn't miss it, and I've seen it 4 times so far. But the Red Wizards, as they show a scene of him as a harper capturing a red wizard, and then you see when he's coming back to visit his family, the red wizards kind of ride through the village at night, and he races after them and gets to the house and find out that they've stabbed his wife with a red wizard's blade, and luckily she hid their daughter away. And one of the things they mention is that no one can come back from a red wizard's blade. You can't be revived or anything like that. And then it shows on that he goes into drinking a lot. He meets up with this is where he meets Holga in the bar, and she starts staying with him and helping him out, taking care of their daughter, or his daughter. Then he ends up going ahead and realizing that he needs to become a thief, which is one of the reasons why he's in Revel's Inn in the first place. Hello, Letitia. How's it going? Thanks for tuning in. We are giving a review of Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, so this is a little bit spoiler heavy. I'm sure that you've seen it. I hope you have anyway, and apologize. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Yes. So he hooks up with someone named Forge Fitzwilliam, played by Hugh Grant. They have a sorcerer that's working with them. Justice Smith plays, what was the character's name? Let me find it here. I think it was, oh shoot. There we go. Got all this pulled out. What I'm thinking of it actually, I'm on D&D Beyond over here. The other character is, Simon. Yes, Simon Omar. I'm going to go ahead and post this in our chat here in case people haven't picked it up. On D&D Beyond, there is a bundle that you can claim for free that has all of the characters, stat blocks from the film. It's also got some different a dice set that you can get for free, and it also has legendary items. All of the items that appear in the movie, they have the D&D actual 5th edition stats for them all on D&D Beyond in that package there in our chat that I just posted. You can claim that for free. It does, of course, have the Red Wizard Blade in there, the Tablet of Reawakening. But anyway, so once Edgin and Holga get together with Simon and Forge. They start doing thievery and doing all these different types of jobs, trying to make money where he hadn't made money before. And then eventually, Forge tells him about this tablet of reawakening that can bring back his wife. And his daughter doesn't want him to go, says that they have all they need, but he really wants to get his wife back. So they go on one final mission as she stays behind. She, of course, during one of their heists, they got her little pendant of invisibility that allows her to turn invisible, and they would take her with some of the heists. But eventually they go to a place that's actually in D&D as well. That's called Corin's Keep, which is a Harper stronghold. They go there to steal some different stuff, working for this wizard, this female wizard that hired them to take this job. Unbeknownst to them, of course, as a D&D fan and such like that, you could easily surmise from the trailers and stuff like that that the wizard that hired them was secretly a red wizard. But of course, the characters and the protagonists don't know this because Sophina is a red wizard of Thay. And they do this job, and while once Edgin gets the tablet of awakening, he of course didn't check for traps. The trap goes off, and they get all of the guards get called in, and then Sophina casts a time stop, and Edgin gives the tablets to Forge, and Sophina and Simon get away. So that's why Holga and Edgin had gotten captured and were in Revel's End. So they eventually, as they're talking in the chamber, Chancellor Jonathan comes in and he's at Aarakocra, and Edgin gives him a hug, goes to give him a hug, and because he's in Aarakocra, he just goes and him and Olga jump on, knock down the guards, jump on the Aarakocra and jump out the window, and they just start falling down before the Aarakocra finally brings out their wings, and they're able to make their escape from Revel's End and start making their way across the frozen north. And the landscape scenes in this film are great. It's almost like they took a lot of the art that was done for Rime of the Frost Maiden and such, and they picked out some of those places that perhaps might have inspired that artwork to shoot for the locations. The artwork, the cinematography, everything was just amazing as they're traveling across. That definitely makes you feel as if they're in the Sword Coast. And eventually they get to where they're able to steal some horses and start making their way back to Edgin's home because he also asked Forge to take care of his daughter. So he's wanted to try to find Forge and his daughter. And they get back to his hometown. He finds that people haven't been there for a while. He sees that his daughter has left him a Harper symbol. Of course, he had given up on the Harpers when his wife died and turned to a life of thievery. He opens up and he finds that his daughter left his musical instrument, a very small looking lute, behind, and you kind of find out there that Edgin is more of a bard than an actual rogue. So they're sitting and drinking in the local watering hole, and they realize that Forge, their old companion somehow, is now the Lord of Neverwinter. They're not sure how that happened, and they definitely want to find out. So they start, again, there's comedy throughout the whole thing. They make their way to Neverwinter. There's even a scene with the volcano as they're traveling to Neverwinter, and they get there. It's beautiful. If you haven't seen it, again, spoilers, my apologies. But in the trailers, when everyone was wondering, is that Waterdeep? Is it Neverwinter or whatever? And it, of course, is Neverwinter. And you come to find out that Lord Neverember, the leader of Neverwinter, is somehow fallen ill and is unconscious and could not take care of the city. And Forge was able to, with the help of Sophina, who's still working with them, is able to become the Lord of Neverwinter. And of course, he acts as if he's happy to see Holga and stuff, and Edgin brings in Edgin's daughter. And then you find out, of course, that that Forge has been lying to her the whole time that they've been gone for 2 years and in prison. And basically, the daughter believes everything that Uncle Forge has been saying, of course, because, her father hasn't been around or whatever, and convinces her that, he's going to send them off and they're going to leave, that they're only there for the tablet, which is the tablet of treasures, which is not. Obviously, he lied to her the whole time. And then she leaves, and they start to. Then it's basically revealed that Forge is kind of the villain of the story, and he basically says that he's going to banish them off. They need to leave or whatever. And Safina takes them and whispers to some of the guards for them to actually kill them. Again, there are some Easter eggs throughout the film. I'm just basically talking about the basic plot right now. We can get into some of the Easter eggs here in a little while. But eventually they get away from the guards as the guards try to execute them in the alley. There's a big fight. Great, wonderfully choreographed fight scene with Michelle Rodriguez and some of the stunt people, which was just crazy. It was awesome. They get out of the city, and then they decide that they need to get back in to try to get Edgin's daughter back. So, of course, they know that Simon has had escaped when they did, so they go looking for Simon. They find him in Tribor. He's basically playing himself as a charlatan. You do find out that Simon's actually a wild magic sorcerer. As they're meeting him, they come in, you see some spells that he's casting, like prestidigitation, cantrips and stuff. Not impressing anyone. And then, of course, he has either an unseen servant or a mage hand, which is actually going through and stealing from everyone while he's putting on the show. They find out about it, and of course the wild magic goes off. He ends up casting reverse gravity, and a bunch of insanity ensues, and a lot of fun. And they're able to finally escape. And then they're talking about how they're going to get in to the place to get his daughter back. So they think about somebody with wild shapes. So they needed a druid, and of course Simon knows a druid that he worked with in the past. You come to find out that he had a love interest in the druid, but she didn't have any interest in him. But they go to find her, and she is a tiefling living amongst the wood elves, and she is a druid and a member of the Emerald Enclave. They do mention the Emerald Enclave throughout the film. They do mention the Lord's Alliance and the Harpers. They really didn't touch on much with the Order of the Gauntlet or the Zentarum. If there's a sequel, maybe that might come into it as well. We'll see. But they get with Doric, and she doesn't like humans, but they eventually convince her to travel with them back. And now you also find out, when it cuts back to Neverwinter, that Forge has invited the wealthiest nobles from Waterdeep and Baldur's Gate to come, because he's doing what's called the High Sun Games, which hasn't been around for a while in Neverwinter because the old Lord had stopped them because they were brutal games and such like that. But he's starting to back up to bring the city back together, and you find out that it's really just a ruse for him to get these people to come bet on all of these games and put it in their secure vault, which is, they mentioned it's shielded by magic from Mordenkainen, and they agree eventually. Then you find out that he's basically just going to try to steal all of the funds. For what purpose, not really sure. But they go through and they're trying to figure out what's going on. Then the Red Wizards bring in some Thayan assassins to start hunting down the people that escaped, obviously Edgin and Holga. You find out that Holga was once married to a halfling, and this was the big cameo that was kind of a surprise, where she goes back to they're traveling, and they go through her home village, and you find out that she left her clan. She's an Uthgardt barbarian, and she had left her clan to be with her husband, who happens to be a halfling. And the surprise with that was that Bradley Cooper was playing the halfling, which was pretty funny, and everyone gasped when we saw it for the first time. So they're traveling they even mention the Cult of the Dragon, so they could find, because they find out about this vault. They want to get in there because that's where the tablet is, they believe, and they need to get this thing called the Helm of Disjunction, which is a reference, for those of you that haven't played older editions, to a spell called Mordenkainen's Disjunction, which when cast, it basically dispels all magic on, it can even be used to destroy artifacts in older editions. Sorry. So eventually they find this paladin that knows about it, its location. Before they do that, they have to go through and speak with the dead at a place where Holga's clan had once fought. And that's probably one of the funnier scenes in the film. Just the people that wrote it, obviously, and also I believe wrote Spider-Man: No Way Home. It's got a lot of great of that Marvel-esque style from the MCU type of humor in the film, which is great. They're led to the Paladin, which is able to take them into the Underdark to find this helm. And that's when you find out that the Paladin once was pledged to Sastam. And of course, by now you've also found out that Sophina is a apprentice of Sastam, the great Archlich of Thay, the Zolkir of necromancy. And they talk about this spell that Zastam had cast to basically create his vast army of undead that he has in Thay. And that Zank, the paladin, his family was there. And shortly after that, he was able to work with Thay for a while, but was able to finally escape and was on a path, basically of redemption as a paladin. I do believe he does mention in a quote that about the tenets of the oath of the tenets of the ancients. So I think that might have led to him being kind of revealing that he's a paladin with the oath of the ancients path. They make it into Underdark. They pass, I believe, what would be Gauntlgrim in the Underdark. You actually see the Underdark city in the distance as they're going through a cavern. Again, there's a little Easter egg with some monsters all throughout the film. They make it down into the cavern. There's a thing with the traps. They're all trying to talk about the trap, and then there's a funny thing where Simon sets it off. And then you find they finally do get the helmet. Then the Red Wizard assassins show up. They find out that all the Red Wizard assassins are dead. Some great fighting with Zink and the assassins, where he literally goes through and takes them all out. Of course, then the big reveal there in this area was where Thumbershod, which is a rather large red dragon that is in lots of the different adventures throughout the different editions of D&D, has made a new lair there, and there's a big, huge fight scene with the Red Wizards, and then the heroes are finally able to escape, and Zink, having done what he's supposed to do with them, goes ahead and parts ways. And of course, Simon is trying to attune to this helm, because you have to have attunement to it, obviously, leading to 5th edition, where you have to attune to certain magic items. And there's a scene where he's trying to attune to it, and he just can't do it. And basically, Edgin says, "Don't tell anyone." It might have happened early in the film, but don't not tell anyone. And of course, he does mention it there at the camp that he told him not to tell. And then he says this whole thing about, we're not failures. We keep trying, and once we quit, that's when we actually fail. And there's a big, really cool speech, and then everyone rallies together to go ahead and figure it out. Of course, when Helga was at her ex-husband's place, he did give her his old walking staff, which Simon figured out was the staff, the Hither-Thither staff, which is actually in the D&D Beyond bundle. So they used a plan to use the Hither-Thither staff, or Thither, I can't remember which, to make their way to get into the vault. They eventually discover that as Simon is trying to attune to the helmet, basically Edgin says, you're always at your best when everything's on the line. The wild magic surges through you. You can cast powerful magics. You're more powerful than you were before. And indeed, at the last second, every time he's trying to attune a figure, it appears as if in the film that the figure he meets is Elminster. As Elminster is mentioned, Elminster Omar, which is Elminster's name in the Forgotten Realms lore, is preventing him from trying to attune to it. And you find out that eventually that it is actually a vision that Simon sees as Elminster, who Simon is supposed to be a descendant of, is actually just a version of himself that he had to basically fight to attune to it. Once he attunes to it, they're able to get into the vault and realize the vault is empty. At the same time, Dork has gone through the portals and into the place that she thinks is the vault, and you find out it's underneath this arena where the Heisen games are taking place, and you discover that the vault itself is just kind of a ruse. You see a spell come up, which is fairly obvious what it would be. I believe Everett's black tentacles kind of grab the people in the MD vault. Dork gets knocked out, and then instead of killing them off, of course, Edgin goes to try to find his daughter, and you find out that it is actually Safina in disguise. And then they talk Forge Fitzwilliam into putting him into the Heisen Games. And the Heisen Games is a series of different traps and a series of different contests. And if anyone ever survives through all the different versions, they will be granted their freedom or whatever, or win the games, as it were. Of course, when they come up in the arena, one of the really awesome cameos is you see that there are three parties. I believe one of the parties is supposed to represent Vox Machina, but I'm not really sure. But the other one actually is all of the adventurers and the children from the D&D cartoon from the 1980s. You can see Eric the Cavalier, you can see Sheila the Thief, you can see Bobby the Barbarian, you see Hank. All of the different characters are there, and they're all part of the games. This is where you see a lot more of the D&D monsters. You've seen Dork. I think she uses polymorph to change into the owlbear. I know there was a big mention about how owlbears are monstrosities and druids can only do beasts. So, of course, dramatic license with the movie might have just been something that they used for that. You also see some tiny rust monsters in Neverwinter when they're going to kill Edgin and Holga in the alley. And in this scene, of course, in the Heisen games, you see a displacer beast that comes out. You see a gelatinous cube, which the party uses as a fairly inventively to kind of escape out. You also see a mimic in the games as well. And then they go through and find out as they stop Forge from leaving. They convince Edgin's daughter that everything that they're telling the truth the whole time. They get all of the treasure once they escape, and they have the tablet. And then Simon uses a spell to help them escape. And as they're leaving, they realize that the whole point of Sofina getting this all together and convincing Forge to do all this is she wants to cast another spell for Zastam with this horn that they had actually stole from Corrin's Keep in the very beginning of the film. She's using this horn to basically call down this spell on all of the people in Neverwinter inside the arena to basically turn them into an undead army so Zastam can take over Neverwinter as well. Our heroes see that on the boat, and with a few expletives, I think just one expletive, Edgin turns the boat around and they head back to try to save Neverwinter. In doing so, they use the hither thither staff to create a portal from the boat with all the treasure and a hot air balloon with Forge's face on it, because one of the things that Edgin had promised Zank when he gave him the helmet was that if they got the treasure, they would give it all back to the people of Neverwinter. So in order to do that, they have put a portal at the bottom of the boat. They put a portal off the side of the hot air balloon, and all the treasure starts spilling out from the bottom of the boat and coming out of the hot air balloon, dropping all over Neverwinter, and it clears everyone out of the arena, preventing them from all being affected by the spell. And then, of course, you have the big final battle with the characters and Sofina in the like a town square in Neverwinter. And then, of course, the battle's over, everyone's happy, and then you turn around and you see that Holga has been pierced by the Red Wizard's blade. And, of course, Holga is like a mother to Edgin's daughter because she helped raise her. And, of course, Holga dies, and there's a big, it's a really, our theater was completely quiet when it happened because it was a very stark contrast. It was great the way they put it in. You could see it immediately as a movie fan when that turned around and happened, but it was a great juxtaposition of all the comedy and action to just a very serious, dramatic thing. And Holga dies, and then the daughter looks to Edgin, and he nods, and he pulls out the tablet, knowing that he can't get his wife back, because he realizes that he's doing it for selfish reasons, because he wants his wife back, but his daughter never knew her as her mother, because she had died when she was just a baby, and the only mother that she really knew was Holga. So it was really cool that happened at the end of that. They brought Holga back, and then of course Forge is trying to escape the city with one piece of treasure that he got, and of course he does come upon Zinc, the paladin, who basically takes him and sends him to Revel's End, where you're seeing at the end Forge trying to talk at his hearing about getting out, and he tries to do the same thing and grabs Jonathan and tries to jump through the window, and you find out that they've actually bricked it over with a brick wall, and Forge is going to have to face justice inside Revel's End, as the rest of the party are granted medals and honors from Lord Neverember as he wakes up, the Lord of Neverwinter, because of Sofina's spell that had put him unconscious, and the heroes are victorious at the end of the film. So that's just kind of a basic rundown of the film. I'm sure that I missed a few things here and there of it, but lots of the different Easter eggs in there. Obviously, all of the monsters were in there were great. They had spell castings where you could actually tell what spells that they were using. Like at the very end, during the battle, Simon and Sofina were battling with Bigby's hand spells back and forth, using crushing hands, all of those different types of hands and stuff. You see fog cloud cast during the film. You see time stop. It's actually during the final battle, one of the ways they're able to win was because Sofina casts into the time stop, and she doesn't realize that Simon actually was powerful enough now to counter it. And he casts counter spell to counter her time stop. You see chain lightning cast when they're in Corn's Keep, which is really great. They mention a lot of the different towns and stuff around the Sword Coast. Obviously, Waterdeep, Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter, Tribor, a lot of the different areas in the Sword Mountains, the Evermoors, things like that. Which I think they went into the Evermoors was where they fought where Helga's tribe had fought the Cult of the Dragon, which they actually referred to the Cult of the Dragon, referring back to the Tyranny of Dragons and all of those events there. And of course, as I mentioned, Dagalt Neverember, they talk about him because everyone's like, how are they going to deal with that with this new character being the Lord? And they explain that in the film, that he's basically been placed under a spell by Sofina. They mentioned Darksteel, which is, if anyone, for those of you that are really deep lore fans of Forgotten Realms, Darksteel is a very, very powerful metal, very akin to just as prized as mithril and adamantine. To make weapons, and of course Darksteel has the ability to absorb most magical energies coming in. There's even a scene where the Darksteel axe that Holga has goes into like a forge, and it comes out, and it's hasn't been destroyed. It just looks like it's got a fiery tinge to it because of absorbing it or whatever, which is really, really awesome. Of course, they do have the owlbear in there, which is really great graphics, how they did that. You do see axe beaks. Of course, axe beaks, for those that played in Rime of the Frost Maiden, were a primary mount up in Icewind Dale. Of course, you do see some of them in the Sword Coast as they're herding them through. The really great scene was when they were talking, when the tribe of the Elk, which is what Helga's was her tribe that she was from. They were fighting Raykor, this black dragon, and that's the scene you see in the trailers, where the dragon is just coming over and it's literally belching acid over all of the armies, which is a really great scene as well. Of course, the Speak with the Dead, as I mentioned, is just one of the most hilarious parts of the film. Of course, they do, explain the different classes you have. Of course, the bard representing the druid, the sorcerer. Of course, Forge is just a rogue, I believe. And then the druid, of course, as well. Let me see. Of course, the Hither staff is a new item. As as I mentioned, if you look here in our chat, I did post the link there to D&D Beyond, where you can get all this information. I should say all of the 5th Ed D&D rules for all of the characters and the magic items in the game, or in the movie. You do see another instance of a spell is when the Thayan assassins come in and they start to fight Zinc. You can see one of them basically casts a cantrip of Green Flame Blade and uses that throughout their fight. You do see there's a scene where they're trying to sneak past the guards in Neverwinter, and Simon casts a spell, most likely minor image or probably major image, as minor image rule-wise is only supposed to be a smaller area, but it might have been minor image because it's 5x5 area. But where you see Edgin coming out playing a song, and then it starts to malfunction because Simon starts to lose his concentration, and it starts warping, and it becomes really odd looking, and starts making odd noises, which is hilarious the way it's set up. As I mentioned, the Everard's black tentacles are used a few times towards the end of the film to capture the protagonists and such. And yes, Diana and Presto are also part of the animated series characters with their cameo when they were thrown into that. Of course, they don't say their names, but you can plainly see the outfits. Yes, the Displacer Beast was there in the fight as well. It was really cool how they did the effects on the Displacer Beast as well. They basically kind of had like one of the gnomes or I think it was a gnome that was in the first party, was facing off against the Displacer Beast, and you see it coming at them, and then like he goes to attack it, and the sword goes through it, and you see the actual Displacer Beast coming around the corner, and it's using like its tentacles with the little things on the end of the tentacles. The Displacer Beast has off his back, and it's kind of like projecting that displacement of itself somewhere else, which is really cool way that they use the Displacer Beast. In that same scene, the Mimic was excellent. It literally looks like a trunk, because you do see Bobby the Barbarian come up and opens a trunk and gets something out of it. And Doric, I believe, if I recall, goes up and pulls a sword or something out of one of them. And then Holga runs to one, and she opens it up, and then you see that it's a Mimic inside, and the lashes out with its pseudopod tongue or whatever. Eventually gets a hold of her, and Doric comes through and saves her. But yeah, the Mimic was really great. The Gelatinous Cube was used in a really awesome fashion, because they use it in conjunction with Doric's shape-changing ability with her wild shape. And she convinced them the only way to escape was for everyone to jump into the Gelatinous Cube all at the same time. And she was able to kind of turn into a snake and get out, and she was able to pull them out the other side. And they were talking about how it stings. No, it stings on the other side from the acid, trying to absorb them in the Gelatinous Cube. There were so many different spells. I would say that throughout the film, they had at least probably 12 or 13 different spells. I didn't take time to make a list, but I think at the beginning of the fight that Safina casts Meteor Swarm, because there are just meteors dropping down all around the battlefield right off the bat. I think Earthen Grasp, Maximilian's Earthen Grasp was used during the final fight. Obviously the Big Beast's Crushing Hands and such like that. There was a spell that animated a dragon statue. I'm not sure exactly what that spell was representing. I don't know. I did notice that Safina did use what I thought was Misty Step during the battle, as she teleports from one place, but just about 30 feet up to the top of another building nearby, which was great. Of course, Magic Missile, I believe, was used. The shield spell. I also think that Simon even might have used a wall of force, like the dome wall of force, during the final fight as well, to kind of protect the party from a lot of the spells that Safina was casting. But towards the end, of course, you do see Safina kind of transform from her human guise, or her humanoid guise, and it does reveal that she too is some sort of lich at the end. And there's a thing that I really didn't mention. It's kind of a minor thing, but once you see the film, it's very interesting how they tricked Safina into having to wear this magic blocking cuff, which prevents her from using magic, and then Dork turns into the owlbear again and just basically has her Hulk with Loki moment from the Avengers, where just puny god type of fight, which was really great the way that they added that in there. I'm sure there's a lot more different Easter eggs and things of that nature that were in the film that I might have missed. As I said, I've seen it a couple times in the theaters. I've seen it a couple times on other platforms since then. Probably might go see it in the theater again. I'm not sure, but it was definitely worth the time to go check it out. It was definitely worth spending the exorbitant amounts of money that it takes to go to films these days and actually in the theaters. I did buy the D20 dice bucket for the popcorn. I did not know the night we went to AMC theaters, and in many AMC theaters they have a bar called MacGuffin's, and I didn't find out until Friday that they actually had tankards, and we had went Wednesday to the preview before it released at the city nearby, largest city nearby where I live. And if we'd known about the tankards, I didn't know about it until Friday. My wife and I were getting ready to go somewhere, and I was like, well, our theater has one of those. Let's go out there real quick. We don't need a ticket to get those. And she's like, oh, we're going to see it tomorrow at 5:30. There'll be some left. It'll be fine. And I get out there at 5:30 on the Saturday, and they had sold out earlier in the day. So I was a little disappointed that I didn't get the tankard, but I'm definitely not going to spend $100 for what people are selling them for online. It was funny that you saw the popcorn dice buckets go up on like all the different auction sites immediately for like $100, $150, and then come to find out that AMC on their merchandise page, you could actually go buy the dice on there as well. They didn't put the tankard up ever, which was a little disappointing, but that's just the way things are sometimes. But yeah, like I said, 8, 9 out of 10. It's a great film. Obviously, with John Wick 4 coming out, the Super Mario Brothers movie, the fervor around the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves has kind of died off a little bit, but which is unfortunate because it's a really great movie. I also wonder if it's because of the poor quality, I should say, of the first 3 D&D films. Of course, the first one with Jeremy Irons released in theaters, and the other 2 I think were direct to video. Obviously didn't do well, and I'm sure there were a lot of D&D fans that haven't had a chance to see it yet that were worried that it was going to be a situation where it was going to be like the other films, where the quality was going to be bad. It was going to be the story wasn't going to be great. The effects weren't going to be they weren't going to be as faithful to the game of Dungeons and Dragons. But this movie was. It was faithful to the game. It was faithful to the story. The story was great. They used all of the different locations and everything, all the references in the Forgotten Realms, and all of that. So, all in all, it was a really, really great film. Yes, it was super good. I mean, did really great on the openings, but then of course it was like 36 million, which is awesome in the first week or so, 2 weeks or whatever. But then of course Super Mario came out, and I guess the first weekend it made like $204 million. I'm like, ugh. And I have not seen it. I probably won't go see it because I played Super Mario Brothers 3 and Super Mario World a little bit, but I wasn't really into Mario as much. I was more into Sega and PlayStation than I was Nintendo. But I heard that the movie itself is kind of really not that great either, but I don't know. I haven't seen it. I'm not trying to crack on any film. Don't come after me about stuff that I've heard from other people. I have not seen it yet, so it might be a really great movie. I don't know. But yeah, it is sad that it's kind of died off. That the excitement didn't keep going from the fans. But hopefully, it might have a resurgence where people haven't had a chance to see it yet, might come back and say, well, it's getting great reviews. Everyone says to go see it. Let's go check it out, and it might just steadily do better over time. Especially in order to get a sequel, because they did leave opportunities, and there's lots of stuff in there where they could do a sequel. Would be really, really great to see, as it was a Dungeons and Dragons movie that was faithful to the game. It utilized and touched and gave nods to the rules of the game. Obviously, it gave nods to lots of great stuff for the Forgotten Realms and the different sites and locations in there as well. Plus, of course, the big bad guy of the Forgotten Realms, Zaz Tam. Which obviously, for those of you that I shouldn't say obviously, for those of you who don't know, I am one of the co-story leads for the Dreams of the Red Wizards Adventures League storyline for Dungeons and Dragons, and Zaz Tam is a character that I know extremely well, and working on a follow-up storyline to the culmination of last year's Terminal Ambitions. Which culminated in the DRW 20 adventure called The Death of Zaz Tam. So I'm working on those. We have the first 5 adventures out, the first 4 regular adventures and epic so far. We're working on another adventure that should be out in May, and then we'll have 2 more coming out in June at Origins. So we're looking forward to having those be finished up here, and then of course working on other adventures that are going to be coming out from some awesome writers throughout the rest of the year, and then culminating with our story finishing up in December of this year. So hopefully when those come out, we're getting ready. Our layout and editors are putting those all together. We're coming, I think our first Dragonlance from Baldwin Games came out, and then shortly, I'm not sure if we're going to be doing Moonshay next or the Dreams of the Red Wizards, but those are all in the pipeline, getting finished, ready to go to the Dungeon Masters Guild, the DM's Guild online. You can pick up the first Dragonlance adventure. I believe it's Dragons of Divinity is out now. And we are doing something really cool where we are putting in, you can buy just the PDF of the adventure itself, or you could buy a bundle that includes a setup for the Roll20 VTT. And I believe you can also buy the Roll20 VTT setup separately as well. So you can buy the adventure, buy the VTT stuff, or you can buy them together as a bundle. So those should be all coming out. Again, as I mentioned, the Dragonlance is out already right now. So yeah, like I said, go check out the film if you have a chance to check it out. It's really great. But we've got a couple viewers here live. Does anyone have any questions about D&D, about the movie, about dungeon mastering? Feel free to ask me. If not, if you haven't joined, go ahead and check here on the Twitch channel below in the About Us section. You can find a link to our Discord, our community Discord server, which is, you can just click on the Discord panel. That'll give you an invite to our Discord server, where we have a great community of D&D players, fans, aficionados. Lots of us also play Adventurers League, which is what we do, the rules set we play for our live play games on Sunday evenings. We also have a link to all of our Linktree link to all of our social medias. You can like us, follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube, Instagram, things like that, to follow us there. And then we do have the merch store finished up. We're just waiting before we put a link together, waiting on a couple of minor small things to go through to get it all official. And then we're going to have the merch store up very soon, as well as an area for tips and things like that, if any of our viewers or supporters want to help out that way. Tomorrow night is our next stream from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have the lovely Jenny Loveday on with us, and interviewing her, talking about her experiences and her as a content creator and adventure writer and things of that nature, her experiences with D&D, how she got started, things like that. And that'll be from 7 p.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow evening. And then Thursday, we will have our normal dungeon delving from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. I will be playing again Lord of the Rings Online. We do play on the Landreval server, so if anyone wants to join us on that server, they can do so. It is a free-to-play game. Normally we run that on Fridays as well from 2 to 4, but we were going to miss this Friday as this weekend is virtual D&D weekend. So I'll be running games for players on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There might still be some tickets available for those if you want to check those out. We are playing Tier 2 Adventurers League characters, which you can join our Discord server, get the Adventurers League role, and you can find out the documentation for that on the Discord server as well. And those tickets are on the Yawning Portal website through Wizards of the Coast. But that, I think, is going to bring us to the end of the stream today. So everyone take care and be safe and happy adventuring. We'll talk to you soon.